Mia had babysat for the Hendersons dozens of times. Sweet couple, easy kid, and their historic Victorian house was only 10 minutes from her apartment. When Mrs. Henderson mentioned they'd be gone until midnight for an anniversary dinner, Mia didn't think twice about accepting. She arrived at 6 p.m. 7-year-old Tommy was already in his pajamas, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. "Remember," Mrs. Henderson said, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror, "Tommy's bedtime is 8:30, and please, don't go into the basement. The lock's been acting up, and we don't want you getting trapped down there." Mia nodded. "Got it. Have fun." The evening went smoothly. Tommy ate his chicken nuggets, they played board games, and by 8:30, he was tucked in bed without complaint. Mia settled onto the living room couch with her phone, scrolling through social media in the quiet house. At 9:47 p.m., she heard it. A soft thump from somewhere below her feet. She froze, listening. Old houses make noise, she told herself. The heating system, pipes, nothing. Then another thump, deliberate, rhythmic. It was coming from the basement. Mia's heart began to race. She walked to the basement door in the kitchen. It was closed, just as the Hendersons had left it. She pressed her ear against the wood. Silence. She was about to walk away when she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The door had a mirror hanging on it, one of those full-length mirrors, but her reflection was wrong. In the mirror, the basement door behind her reflection stood open. Mia spun around. The real door was still closed. She looked back at the mirror. In the reflection, she could see down into a dimly lit basement. And at the bottom of the stairs stood a woman in a dirty white dress, staring up at her reflection with black, hollow eyes. Mia stumbled backward, her phone clattering to the floor. When she looked at the mirror again, it showed only her own terrified face and the closed door behind her. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and called Mrs. Henderson. "Mia, is everything okay? I saw something in the mirror on the basement door. I think someone might be—" "What mirror?" Mrs. Henderson's voice went sharp. "Mia, there's no mirror on that door. We took it down 6 months ago after— Just get Tommy and leave the house, now." The line went dead. Mia ran up the stairs, her breath coming in gasps. She burst into Tommy's room. His bed was empty. The dinosaur lay abandoned on the pillow. "Tommy?" she called out, trying to keep the panic from her voice. A giggle echoed from downstairs. Mia crept to the top of the stairs and looked down. Tommy stood in the kitchen facing the basement door, the door that was now standing wide open. "Tommy, come here right now," Mia said as firmly as she could manage. Tommy turned to look at her, but his eyes were wrong. Too dark, too empty. "She wants to meet you," he said in a voice that wasn't quite his own. "She's been waiting in the mirror for someone to see her, and now that you have, she can come out." Behind Tommy, Mia saw movement in the darkness of the open basement. A pale hand gripped the doorframe. Mia ran down the stairs, grabbed Tommy, who suddenly felt ice cold, and dragged him toward the front door. She fumbled with the locks, her hands slipping, Tommy's weight becoming heavier, pulling her backward. "Don't be rude," Tommy whispered. "She just wants to say hello." The front door finally opened. Mia threw herself and Tommy onto the porch, tumbling down the front steps onto the lawn. She looked back at Tommy, and his eyes were normal again, confused and scared. "Mia, what's happening? Why are we outside?" Behind them, through the open front door, Mia could see into the house. In the hallway, Mrs. Henderson's mirror, the one she'd been using earlier, now showed the basement door. And in that reflection, the woman in the white dress stood in the hallway, smiling. Slowly, impossibly, she stepped out of the mirror and into the house. The front door slammed shut. Mia held Tommy close as red and blue lights finally appeared down the street. Mrs. Henderson must have called the police. But as they sat on the lawn, waiting, Mia couldn't stop staring at her phone screen's black reflection. In it, just for a moment, she saw the woman standing right behind her. When she spun around, nothing was there. But her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for letting me out."
Marcus loved solo hiking. The solitude, the challenge, the silence broken only by birdsong and wind through the trees. When he found the unmarked trail branching off from the main path in Blackwood Forest, his curiosity got the better of him. The trail was narrow, overgrown, like no one had used it in years. Perfect. He checked his phone, 2:47 p.m., plenty of daylight left. He took a photo of the trail entrance, just a wall of dense trees and shadows, and posted it to his hiking group with the caption, "Found something new. Wish me luck." The path wound deeper into the forest. The trees grew closer together, their branches interweaving overhead until the sunlight became a dim, greenish haze. Marcus noticed something odd. There were no sounds. No birds, no insects, just his footsteps on the soft earth. After 20 minutes, he saw something that made him pause. A backpack leaning against the tree trunk. It was old, weather-beaten, covered in moss. He approached cautiously and opened it. Inside was a wallet with an ID card, Jennifer Chen, 24. The photo showed a young woman with a bright smile. The ID had expired in 2019. Marcus's stomach tightened. He looked around, but the forest remained silent and empty. He left the backpack and continued forward, telling himself he'd report it to the rangers when he got back. 10 minutes later, he found another backpack, then another. 5 in total, all arranged at regular intervals along the trail, all from different years. The oldest was from 2011. Marcus pulled out his phone to call for help. No signal. He turned around to head back, but something was wrong. The trail behind him looked different, darker. The trees seemed to lean inward, creating a tunnel of shadows. He started walking back quickly, his breath coming faster. That's when he saw it. About 50 feet ahead on the path, standing perfectly still, was a figure. Tall and impossibly thin, its limbs too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. It wore what looked like rags that hung from its skeletal frame. Marcus froze. The thing didn't move, didn't breathe. It just stood there, blocking the path. "Hello?" Marcus called out, his voice cracking. The figure's head snapped upright with a sound like breaking wood. Then it smiled. Its mouth opened far too wide, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. Marcus ran. He crashed through the underbrush, abandoning the trail, branches whipping his face, roots grabbing at his feet. Behind him, he could hear it moving through the forest, not running, just moving impossibly fast, like it was gliding between the trees. His lungs burned, his legs screamed. He burst through a wall of branches and found himself back on the trail. The same trail, and ahead of him, maybe 30 feet away, the creature stood, waiting, as if it had never moved. Marcus spun and ran in the opposite direction, but within minutes he was back on the trail again, and there it was, always ahead, always waiting, always smiling. He tried going off trail again, running until he collapsed against a tree, gasping for air. When he looked up, he was surrounded by backpacks, dozens of them circling him like a monument to the missing. And in the center, on a rotting wooden post, was a sign he hadn't seen before, hand-carved letters barely legible. The trail only goes one way. Marcus heard footsteps behind him, slow, deliberate. He didn't turn around. "Please, I just want to go home." A hand, cold and bony, rested on his shoulder. A voice like wind through dead leaves whispered in his ear. That's what they all said. Marcus felt something slide his phone from his pocket. In the dim light, he watched as those impossibly long fingers opened his hiking app and marked his location. Then it typed a message to his hiking group. "Trail is amazing. Going deeper. We'll be back by dark." The creature placed the phone gently in a new backpack at the base of the post. As darkness fell over Blackwood Forest, the creature returned to its place on the trail, standing perfectly still, waiting for the next curious hiker to find the unmarked path. And deep in the woods, if you listened closely, you could hear them, all of them, still walking the trail, still trying to find their way back, their footsteps echoing endlessly through the trees, circling and circling, forever looking for an exit that didn't exist.
Rachel fumbled with her keys outside apartment 4B, balancing a pizza box and her phone. It had been a brutal 12-hour shift at the hospital, and all she wanted was to collapse on her couch and zone out to Netflix. The key slid in smoothly. The door opened. She kicked off her shoes in the dark entryway, too tired to notice the small details. The apartment smelled different. Not bad, just unfamiliar. Maybe her roommate Lisa had bought a new candle. Rachel set the pizza on the kitchen counter and called out, "Lisa, you home?" No answer. She flipped on the living room light and froze. This wasn't her couch. The walls were painted a different color. There were family photos on the mantel, people she'd never seen before. A child's drawing stuck to the refrigerator with magnets. Rachel's heart began to pound. She pulled out her phone and checked her messages. Lisa had texted 2 hours ago. Working late, won't be home till 11. She looked at her apartment number in her contacts, 4B. She looked at the number on the inside of the door she'd just entered, 4B. But this wasn't her apartment. Rachel backed toward the door, her mind racing. She'd lived in 4B for 3 years. She knew this building. Same floor, same location. Her key had worked perfectly. She reached for the doorknob just as she heard it. Footsteps coming from the bedroom down the hall. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. She twisted the doorknob. It wouldn't turn. The lock had engaged somehow. Her fingers scrambled at the deadbolt, but it was stuck. The footsteps grew closer. "Who's there?" a man's voice called out, deep, rough. "I can hear you." Rachel pressed herself against the door, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip her phone. She dialed 911, but before it could connect, the bedroom door at the end of the hall creaked open. A tall silhouette filled the doorframe. "I've been waiting. Every night I hear someone trying to get in, and tonight the door finally opened." "I'm sorry, wrong apartment. My key, it worked. I don't know how." "Your key shouldn't work here," the man said, stepping into the hallway light. He was middle-aged, disheveled, with wild eyes that didn't blink. "Unless you're meant to be here." "I'm calling the police," Rachel said, holding up her phone. "No signal in here," he said calmly. "I made sure of that. Made sure of a lot of things." Rachel looked at her phone. He was right. No bars, no Wi-Fi. How was that possible? "You know what's interesting?" the man continued, walking closer. "My apartment number is 4D, has been for 15 years. But sometimes, just sometimes, when certain people walk these halls, when people who are meant to find me walk these halls, the numbers change, the locks rearrange, the keys work where they shouldn't." Rachel's back was pressed against the door. "That's insane. That's not possible." "Check your key," he said softly. With trembling hands, Rachel looked at her keychain. The key she'd used, the one she'd used every day for 3 years, now had 4D engraved on it. It had always said 4B. She knew it had. "What do you want?" Rachel whispered. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a photograph. He held it up to the light. Rachel's blood turned to ice. It was her, standing outside this building, taken from across the street, but she was wearing the same scrubs she had on right now. "I took this yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. You walk past this building every day on your way home from the hospital. Do you know how long I've been watching, waiting for the building to choose?" "The building doesn't choose anything," Rachel said, her voice breaking. "You're sick. You need help." "The last one said that too, before the building brought her to me. 2C brought her key to my door. She thought it was her apartment. She learned the truth." Rachel's eyes darted to the family photos on the mantel. She looked closer. The faces in the photos were blurred, smudged, like someone had deliberately obscured them. "Where is she?" Rachel asked. The man smiled and pointed down the hallway. "Second door on the left. She's been waiting for company." Rachel's 911 call suddenly connected. The dispatcher's voice crackled through. "911, what's your emergency?" But before Rachel could speak, the man moved faster than she thought possible. He grabbed her phone and threw it against the wall where it shattered. The building doesn't like interruptions. Rachel screamed and threw her body against the door. The lock held. She ran for the kitchen, grabbed a knife from the block, and spun around. The man stood in the doorway, watching her with those unblinking eyes. "You can try the windows," he said conversationally. "The last one did too, but you're on the 4th floor, and the building doesn't open windows for those who are supposed to stay." Rachel ran to the living room window. She pulled at the latch. It wouldn't budge. She looked out at the street below, people walking by, cars passing, normal life happening just 40 feet away. She pounded on the glass, screaming for help. No one looked up. "They can't hear you," he said, "not when you're inside." Rachel turned, gripping the knife. "Stay back!" The man checked his watch. "It's 9:47. Do you know what happens at 10? "What?" "The building lets me have what it brings me." Rachel's mind raced. 13 minutes. She looked at the door, at the windows, at the hallway leading deeper into the apartment. The man sat down calmly in an armchair, never taking his eyes off her. "You can try to leave. They all do, but the building has already decided. Your key opened my door, and once that happens, there's only one way out." Rachel's grip tightened on the knife. 12 minutes. The clock on the wall ticked impossibly loud. And from somewhere down the hall, from behind the second door on the left, she heard it. A faint scratching and a voice, weak and desperate. "Help me, please, someone help me."